Hi everyone, this is Tom from SRC Moto coming to you from our home base here at Backfire Station in Pendleton, Oregon. Winter has not left us yet. It was hailing, it's going to snow, it's about 30 degrees, and we thought what better to do than to do an install video on a day like today. So you might remember, or if you saw the other video, we did the single top rack on the Honda 300L, and today we're going to do the whole shebang, top rack, side rack, and gas cans. It's a kick-ass system, and we're going to show you how to put it on, so come along. All right, so this is what the rack is going to look like when it's done. It's 2mm thick black satin powder coated aluminum. It's very lightweight, it's very strong, it's only 2.5 pounds when it's all together, TIG welded, it's a kick-ass system. It's about 14 inches long, 9 inches wide, and tapering down to around 8 inches in the front. Side racks are about 12 by 6, you know, kind of oddly shaped. When you have the whole system together, you got about 20 inches of carrying capacity. There's lots of spots to lash things down, to put different manufacturers' soft bags on it. We prefer the Kriega bags. We sell them here at SRC Moto, but there's lots of other manufacturers out there, and they will work on this rack system. The subframe on the bike, Honda says 18 pounds. We have seen people use quite a bit more than that. They've gone to 35, 40, even more weight. It's up to you how you want to do that. Honda recommends not exceeding 18, but we have seen people do a lot more. Kind of depends on the riding you're doing too. Smooth riding is going to be a whole different story than rough up and down stuff. So it's a very slim design compared to the old 250 racks. The old 250 racks were large and square. You can see that these taper. They're much less likely to have branches and things snag on them. And there's really 4 different ways that you can buy this. You can buy just the top rack by itself. You can buy the top and side racks. You can buy the whole thing together. So if you've already purchased the top rack and you have purchased the side racks separately to add, you can put these side racks on the bike while the top rack is mounted to the bike. So what you need for the install is you need some blue thread locker, you need a torque wrench, plastic or a magnetic parched pan I always use. You're going to need a driver for the big bolts, and for the smaller bolts that attach these together, you're going to need a small driver, something with a small head. Something with a head this big is not going to work for you. So you can use kind of your conventional 1/4-inch driver like this, or this is a fabulous tool that we love here at SRC Moto. It's made by Gear Wrench. Standard 1/4-inch bits fit in it, and very low profile. You can get up tight on that. Your hardware, obviously, you will need, what is this? 6mm to get the existing hook bolts out of the Honda, and then you will need 4 and a 5 for the hardware that comes with this. Various extensions. I would have a selection of those extensions handy. And again, if you're going to install the side pieces and the middle's already on the bike, you want a long, narrow extension for the same reason that you need this small head here. It's to get up in there, and it's not exactly a straight shot. So this is a wobble extension. It's fantastic. If you don't have a set of wobble extensions, get them. You could also use a ball end socket, understanding that it's going to be just a little bit of an angle. And you can use a regular socket, but you have to be careful because it is at that angle, and you'll have to make sure you wiggle it in there and don't slip out and strip it. So that is what you're going to need for the install, and now we can get to it. But if you're buying it all fresh, the thing to do is to install the big 3 pieces together off of the bike, and then when it's all one unit, you install that on the bike. So that's what we're going to do here. The torque spec on these screws is only 5 to 6 pounds, so you're not going to use a torque wrench for 5 or 6 pounds. Plus you got thread locker on it. So something like this where you can just screw it in and then give it a little snug is going to be perfect. So I'm going to put some thread lockers on these right here. There's going to be 4 on each side. So 1 screw plus 1 washer each time. You'll see the 4 holes line up. You can just start these by hand and worry about tightening them down later. So all 4 of those are now in hand tight, and we're just going to give them a little snug here. Again, 5 to 6 Newton meters is all you're after, and the small head socket is really going to come in handy for these ones that are up close to the top of the rack. That's where you don't have much room. Lower ones, piece of cake. Upper ones, you'll thank yourself for having a socket with a smaller head. And now we're going to do the same for the other side. Five to 6 Newton meters, just hand tight. You don't have to reef on it. And now your rack assembly is ready to go on the bike. All right, here we are, ready to do our install on the full rack system. As with any motorcycle part install, inspect the pieces that are coming off the bike, inspect the pieces that are going back on the bike, and make sure everything is installed correctly before you hit the road. So a word on the gas can, vastly improved over the 250 gas can. The mechanism here is sturdier and it's easier to get on and off. We've had a little bit of feedback from customers who have called and said, my gas can is rattling. It shouldn't rattle. What's happening is there's some locator pins here that go through the top, and not only do they go through the rack to locate it on the rack, but the hardware for the can itself also has holes for these locator pins. So what's happening is people don't have the pins lined up with the holes on the can itself, so it moves. So if you have that problem, all of this should fit completely flat, and you just have to make sure that the locator pins are through both sets of holes, and when you tighten it up, everything will be flat and sound and won't rattle at all. So we'll take our gas can off, and it's 750 feet of thread. Set that to the side. Place a couple towels on the back so we don't damage our brand new bike. Set the rack in place. You can see the front holes line up with where the hook bolts came out. And you're just going to set that on there nice and carefully. So you're going to start on the upside of the bike. You're going to grab the short bolt, short collar or spacer, and one of the silver collars that was on the hook bolt. You're going to place that, the collar first, spacer second, and they should stay there because you're working on the upside of the bike. And then you're going to place your bolt in, and you're only going to hand tighten this a couple of threads. You're going to feel it catch, and you're going to give it just 1 or 2 turns. So holding the rack with the other hand, slide that in there. And when you feel it catch, just 1 or 2 turns. And then set it down. Now we'll move to the back. I've already placed the thread locker on the threads. You're going to use your black collar and slide that in the notch where the hook bolt came out of, and it'll stay there. Spacer, long bolt, long spacer in the back. once you get the spacer in, you've got some tension on it, so it should stay and allow you to thread that bolt in. And same principle as before, just a couple of threads. When it catches, give it 1 or 2 turns and leave it there. So now your rack's pretty stable. And you'll go to the front side. Silver collar that came out of there, and now this stuff's going to want to fall out. So you gotta pretend you got multiple hands if you don't have an extra monkey to help you. Silver collar, short bolt, short spacer. Collar and the spacer go in together. And then bolt goes through all of it. And you're going to feel those threads just catch as well. If you don't feel those threads catch, it's because you've got this one in too far. There's little variabilities, and you're going to squeeze it all together when you put torque on it. So if this thread doesn't catch, back that one off a little bit, but not so much that it releases, and then you can push on this one a little harder and you'll feel them both catch. So last one is the back one again. Back black collar, long bolt, long spacer. Now, as you can see, that one is a bugger because the whole rack is almost totally together. So getting that collar in and then that spacer up in there, you're going to need to kind of lift the rack up with your wrist and give it a little bit of separation so that comes in. But you can look through there and you can see when the holes are lined up. And then it just takes a little bit of wiggle to get the threads to catch. So once you've got everything started, then you get your extension and your driver and you put them in, but you don't torque them just yet. There's not a ton of room on this back one on the exhaust side because of where the exhaust is located, but you can get a full-size socket in there and work it from the back like this. So once you feel it all get snug, switch to your torque wrench. In the instruction manual, it's got 22 to 24 Newton meters. I've got this set at 23, and you're just going to go around for your final torque. And don't be surprised if some of these bolts loosen up as you go around this second time because the rack is shifting and settling in. You can put your fingers under the driver to keep it from hitting the exhaust, marking up the exhaust. And that tail light is flexible, so it can move. I'm going to use an extension to get to this final torque on this back one here. And that's that. You've completed your install. Go out and enjoy it. Thank you so much.